Keep intelligence out, but blithely discomprehend. Well, if we're going to keep intelligence out of the problem, if we're going to keep intelligence out of the situation or our consideration of this problem, well, kudos. You've done a far more thorough job of that than I could ever possibly hope to. Um, oh, if you can't come up, if you can't come up with a self-sustaining and self-reconcilable position, don't turn on the camera. Because humanity, as you describe it, is either completely not worth preserving, or should be preserved given, from your perspective, given the empty promise of it being worth preserving. So, which is it? Is the potentiality of humanity empty? In which case, there would be no justification in attempting to save it, in attempting to allow it to perpetuate, to continue. Um, or does it have meaning? In which case, it would be worth perpetuating. And the essence of Tommy's question is that the perpetuation of humanity would involve the annihilation of that which would justify the perpetuation of humanity. In Mendham, I've found that one tends to address generalities larger than oneself with self-descriptions. And that in that the most emotionally pertinent of our self-descriptions kind of come out. The aspects that we see of ourselves that we view as most emotionally important, the ones we think about the most, the ones that we put the most effort into, the ones that we care about the most, tend to leak out in our descriptions of things larger than ourselves. We find this a great deal when we're talking with somebody who has a very specific idea about what the word God means. For example, the descriptions tend to be more descriptions of their dad, or descriptions of their hopes or fears for themselves, depending on whether hope or fear weighs more heavily into their daily thoughts, into their daily feelings. You don't remember, evidently, but we have talked. Real time, no less. We have talked real time. And I posed a question to you on Stickum, and I'll go ahead and pose it again, and then I think I'll call this good. You seem pained, such a pained, uncomfortable commingling of hope, optimism, idealism, loathing, fury, that I know there's something you want to change. I know there's a course of action you want to advocate. I know there is a button of a very different nature in the human being that you want to see pushed. And I think rather than focusing your energy on trying to let the belligerence and rage and skepticism and contempt for the worst, the all too common worst, of humanity. Um, Fight out like mantises in a bamboo cage, with this hope and well, there is hope. You do have hope. You can try to pretend otherwise, but every time you make a valuation, every time you hold humanity to a standard, um, you betray the desperate cynicism that you try to wear as an armor. You betray it constantly, and that's the only reason I'm talking to you right now, is that you do have that hope. If you didn't, you wouldn't feel the need to say a word. There are people I don't bother to address because I don't hold out hope. Oh, rather than letting these two fight it out on their own merits, um, you need to make a decision. You talk about sucking it up. Well, okay, suck it up and make a decision. Um, the very cliched and overused, and I'm going to go ahead and use it and add to that mountain of overuse and cliche, story about there are two wolves. There are two wolves, two dogs, two tigers, whatever, fighting within the human psyche. Um, Loathing, rage, hatred. I'd say there's quite a bit more than two. But also love, joy, compassion, empathy, hope, optimism. And the one that wins the fight is the one that you feed. Well, it seems that you're tossing a bag of kibble in the cage and letting them fight it out. Um, how well's that working? Pick one, feed it. Recognize that the decision is arbitrary. Recognize that it is an arbitrary choice on your part which you're going to feed. But for that matter, choosing not to choose is equally arbitrary. And you know better than I do where that gets you.
Mm-hmm.